for people that have an online business, so to speak, want the ability to move abroad or maybe start their own business. Moving abroad not only will save you money on your federal taxes by that first $100,000 of earned income tax free. It'll help you on your state tax, right? By getting out of a high tax state like New York and California. And then of course the whole notion of cost of living, right?
Are you a solopreneur looking to 2 times your revenue to fund your lifestyle and give back? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. Our guest today is someone who worked for PwC for 2.5 years. Then he went to Pegasus Blue private equity, and everything was going great until a deal didn't get up. They stopped paying him, and he fled to Argentina. He was completely unemployed, and he turned to the one skill no one could ever take away. That was his ability to do tax. He started doing expat tax and now runs a global business from anywhere, helping people with this. So why listen? The advantages of having a remote business, tax implications and structures to have at different stages in your growth, and how to set up a US company and bank account as a non-American. He's also kindly given a free consult, which we'll mention at the end of the podcast. So over now to Vincenzo Villamena from onlinetaxman.com. Welcome, Vincenzo Villamaria, to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Great to have you on, Vincenzo.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we just start with something your family or friends know about you that we wouldn't?
I think it kind of starts with my whole story. When I was, basically living in New York and working at PwC and finance, moving to Argentina was sort of, happened on a whim. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that I, had my back against the wall. I was, working a job and they stopped paying me. And, basically from that, just moved down to Argentina out of nowhere, receiving unemployment checks because, again, the company stopped paying me. And even though I wasn't officially fired, I was put in a position where I had nothing else to do other than, file for unemployment, and they accepted it. And then using that unemployment money, start a business. So I think a lot of people know about that and sort of using that unemployment runway to create Online Taxman.
Well, so because I know you had a great career at PwC, you went to Pegasus Bluestar after that?
Yeah.
So was that the company that
Yeah, Pegasus was. Yeah, Pegasus was good. It was a private equity fund, and it was a great place from a learning perspective, at least initially. But then, like I said, the fund essentially was, fundraising, and that didn't go according to plan. And then, a couple of my bosses left, so that was sort of the writing on the wall.
Mm.
And then, and then they just stopped. They didn't pay the bonuses. They were just started late on the paychecks, and it just turned a complete fiasco. And that's when I was like, you know what, I'm out. And like I said, just moved to Argentina, really in a matter of just a couple of weeks.
Well, and why Argentina?
So I had some friends living there, but it was also, almost kind of like a dream to go to South America, learn Spanish. And, if you haven't been to Argentina, it's a very, it's like Italy and Latin America, right? And my background being Italian, sort of had that connection of all these sort of, Italian people living in LATAM, and yeah, I wanted to live there, have that lifestyle, and learn Spanish. And plus, Buenos Aires is sort of a really cool, metropolitan city, like I said, sort of Italy, but in Latin America. And it's a great place. It's still one of my favorite places today.
Great. So how did you get from that escape to, doing what you do now, which is online taxman?
So, again, I mean, going down to Argentina, had no real plans as far as what to do next. I just knew that I wanted to get out of New York, and if you're going to make a jump like that, right, and kind of given that I was practically unemployed, I figured, let me do something different, and like I said, go down to LATAM, and down there, there wasn't a lot of options other than sort of learn Spanish and party, but I saw a lot of expats down there that needed help with their taxes. And I figured, what, if there's one skill I do still have, it's I know how to do taxes. And, I saw the need for people down there specifically doing taxes, and, U.S. expats and sort of the international tax arena is a lot different than just normal taxes. And so essentially I built a website and started doing sort of online marketing, Google AdWords, and obviously helping people locally down in Argentina, and that's where things started blowing up, right? I mean, I would get random people from around the world that needed help with their tax, the U.S. tax situation, and from there everything sort of snowballed into online taxman and building a team and where I am today.
Great. And was it that quick of a takeoff? Or was it
no,
it was a little more subtle?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, we're talking about over a couple of years. I mean, I think there was certainly sort of in that tax season, like kind of like an aha moment, right? Where again, I built a website and started doing the Google AdWords, and at least saw that it was possible that there were random people that would find me online and want to do their taxes with me. So it was sort of like, wow, this proof of concept, at least in the first year, certainly worked. But it wasn't without sort of the struggles and pains of, doing everything on my own, and then at first, like outsourcing and dealing with the outsourcing problems and quality control problems, and then just sort of, being overworked, sort of wearing a million hats with marketing, with doing the tax return, with process stuff, with, managing a developer, et cetera. And then, like I said, I mean, that took a couple of years to really all smooth out and, build a team and take on a business partner and really become what we are today.
And did you yourself, like, I know there's a lot of restrictions around visas and whether you can be a freelancer or whether you can actually work within a particular country. Did Argentina put any restrictions upon you earning income?
Well, Argentina, thankfully, is probably one of the most disorganized countries I've ever been to. So
you need to go to Venezuela then.
Yeah. It's pretty much a step above Venezuela, honestly. I mean, look at the currency right now; it's just through the roof. So luckily, me, like, basically every other expat I knew, was kind of like there illegally on a tourist visa. And to sort of give you some perspective, if you overstayed your visa, right? If you overstayed sort of 3 months, and, kind of like a lot of these places, you could, of course, always go to Uruguay and do like a visa run and come back and renew yourself every 3 months. But, the thing about Argentina was that the fine for leaving the country was only like $40, which actually was, so it was more expensive to take the ferry to Uruguay and come back than it was just to pay the fine. So this might not have been the best approach, but this is sort of the common practice approach, which was overstay your visa and pay the fine at the airport.
Pay the fine.
That's sort of what I did for a few years.
Sounds like some of my South African friends when you get caught speeding over there. I was there in 2013, and yes, it was. I think the bill I was doing, I don't know, nearly double the speed limit. And the fine, I think, was $25 Australian. So,
right,
whatever that is, $20 US. And the guy definitely didn't put it in the official place that he was meant to. So anyway,
Yeah.
everyone has different rules for different things, but I think Australia is typically one of the most regulated, and it's only, I think, beaten by Germany from what they tell me. And having been in Germany recently, I know what they mean. So, you've basically taken a couple of years, like most of us, you wear every hat, you start sort of releasing them as the business grows. Did you get any support? Was there a mentor, a coach, a mastermind, anyone supporting you in building this rocket ship?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've definitely had some coaches that have helped. I mean, even sort of deciding about the business, right? In like the really initial stages, I did have some mentors, right? I mean, initially I did have this sort of idea that I would go to Argentina for a few months, learn Spanish, and then come back to New York and kind of start one of these kind of like H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, Liberty Tax, like walk-in tax offices.
Yeah.
And I had a mentor that kind of said, why, right? Why would you go back to New York and get yourself in sort of a bunch of sort of contracts and contractual commitments, leases, et cetera, when you also have this idea to potentially do it online. And so it was sort of those initial mentors that sort of helped me navigate the plan. And like I said, after that first tax season, got that proof of concept that this could work online. And then from there, growing the business. Like I said, I had a business partner that was an old friend from university come down a few years into it. We ended up getting a coach, and then just sort of masterminding and getting feedback from other entrepreneurs also over the years has helped me grow my business and sort of point it in the right direction.
Great. And have you still got the business partner?
Yep, the business partner's still around. So
excellent.
That's
well,
good.
Look, that's great because I've heard good stories and not so good. Seems like your story is a good one. Just how have you guys made it work for? Well, I'm assuming nearly 14 years.
Yeah, I mean, we we stay out of each other's way when it comes to sort of the day-to-day operations, right? So if you've sort of like Gino Wickham, and he's he wrote Traction and some really good business books, but one's called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about the visionary and the integrator,
yes.
Right? The visionary being sort of the person that, has the vision and the big idea guy, and then the integrator is sort of the person that's the operations person and sort of helps reel in the visionary. And so I'm the visionary, he's the integrator. So, we respect each other from a role perspective. He's really good at the operational stuff, the process stuff. I'm really good at the marketing, et cetera. And so, like I said, we sort of respect each other's, roles in that. And we also, even from like a strategic standpoint, when it comes to sort of making joint decisions together, we're very much aligned in that. And I think that's important, when you do have a business partner, to sort of balance each other out really well. And then when it comes to the really important decisions, be on the same page. And so that's worked out really well for us.
Yeah, that's great. And look, a quick shout out to Scott Gallatly, my business partner in Scale My Empire, which is the other business that I'm involved in. And I couldn't agree with you more. When it's good, it's really good. I think sadly, when it's not, it's not. But I'm so glad that you and your partner do well. So look, the next section we'll go into is the build section. And I think people already know what you do because you've explained that really well. What I'd love to know is, what are some key tips for anyone listening at the moment that is an American expat in particular looking to go to another country or in another country? What are some real killer tips that you could give them given all your experience?
Yeah, totally. So the biggest thing for U.S. expats, right, is, if you do end up moving abroad or living abroad, you could qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion. And what that means is that you get the first $100,000 or really $105,000 tax-free, right? Income tax-free. So, for people that have an online business, so to speak, want the ability to move abroad or maybe start their own business, moving abroad not only will save you money on your federal taxes by that first $100,000 of earned income tax free. It'll help you on your state tax, right? By, getting out of a high tax state like New York and California. And, then of course the whole notion of cost of living, right? So, that was a big thing for me, moving to Argentina, having this sort of, my savings and my sort of unemployment income runway. It allowed me to sort of receive money and live, very cheaply and put all my money into my business. And I think that was obviously a big help and catalyst for, putting money into, the dev stuff and the online marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, moving abroad is super helpful for people who have the ability to. And then the second part of that is, of course, finding the right business structure, right? So you have sort of, you have an LLC. That's one way to do it. But if you have a little bit of established business, then, converting that LLC into an S Corp could be really good, especially, and this is good for, if you have either U.S. clients or if you're even still U.S. based, or even if you're living abroad, the S Corp is a way better structure than LLC. It'll save on self-employment tax, which is sort of Social Security and Medicare taxes. And then if you're, willing to go the next step and committed to living abroad, then potentially setting up an offshore structure could be very helpful, because that will get your effective tax rate down to 10.5% on the corporate side. And then you can pay yourself the foreign income exclusion of $105,000 from this foreign corporation. And then that would not be subject to any sort of self-employment tax or Medicare tax. So you wouldn't pay into Social Security, but that would save you roughly 15%. And then of course, you could use that 15% to invest in your future other ways by setting up a retirement account or other investments, et cetera, et cetera. So those are sort of my high level tips for people that are looking to move abroad.
Absolute. That's fantastic. And anyone listening, I'm sure that's, especially in the US, that are looking at it, got a lot of value out of that. Just about remote living. So just to change it up a little, what are some of the downsides of living as an expat?
There's a lot of stuff that you have to get used to, right? Meaning in the US, we have sort of pretty high standards of living, high standards of service, and living abroad, especially in like Latin America. Listen, I mean, you get, first world amenities at third world prices. So you have a lot of that, but, stuff like, service in restaurants or, just general overall customer service is not as good, right? So you sort of have to struggle through, being patient with people and the quality of service not being as good. But, if you're patient and you're able to, to deal with that sort of stuff, it's very rewarding. And like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world when it comes to the quality of life in Latin America, and just the good people that really sort of want to help you. Like I said, sort of, the fact that everyone's a little more relaxed there versus the US, where it's a little bit of a rat race at times.
Yeah, look, I hear you, definitely hear you. And, I spent a lot of time in the Philippines. I've got a team there. I've actually got a team in Colombia. I haven't been there as yet.
Oh, nice.
I've also spent a fair bit of time in Europe, in particular Italy, where, as you said, that's your roots. And yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a completely different feeling. I know you're in Spain at the moment, and that itself has got that, great Mediterranean. And what's the difference between, the Italians, the Spanish, and maybe South America? Is it similar, different?
You could certainly sort of tell where the Latinos got their love for life and disdain for working from. You know what I mean? So like, you go to Spain or Italy or Portugal. It's the quality of life is there. Italy in particular right now is sort of in shambles when it comes to like the government and the economy. But so there's not a lot of jobs there, so to speak. But again, I mean, if you could come in and work remotely and whatnot, I mean, the quality of life is great. And yeah, I mean, so that's I mean, yeah, there's certain comparisons, like I said, on the quality of life and the pace of life that I think is really can't be beat in other countries in Europe.
Great. And look, this is a selfish question, but a lot of people that are listening probably got the same one is, if you're not in the US, but you're earning US dollars, which, I think is still the currency of choice, how do you set up a US bank account so you're not constantly hit with conversions? I.e., I get all my clients are paid, and US clients pay in US, Stripe automatically or whatever, Thrivecart converts it back to Aussie here, and I just get stung with fees, and then I'm paying all my suppliers in USD. So then I've got to convert it again. I'd love to get some insights into that.
Yeah, totally. So, the sort of other side of what we do, and so the hot tax tips for non-Americans out there would be to open up a US LLC, right? So a US LLC for people that are not American, are not living in the United States, do not have any US presence like US employees or US office or warehouses, is probably one of the best structures, again, for non-Americans. So in other words, the US is probably one of the biggest tax havens in the world for non-Americans. So by opening up a US LLC and getting a tax ID number, getting articles of incorporation, getting an operating agreement, you can basically walk in any bank account in the United States and open up a US bank account and, get access to the US banking system, keep your currency in US dollars. You use a credit card processor like Stripe or any of them really. And pay US providers, get ACH transfers, US bank transfers, etc.
This is music to my ears. How much would it typically cost to set up a US ULC?
So an LLC, I mean, you're talking roughly, give or take $1,000. With sort of everything included. Now, you can, the only big thing is that you have to go to the United States to open up a bank account.
Right.
So there is, you do have to physically go there. I mean, we used to be able to do it over, virtually, but not anymore. Yeah. There is a service out there called Mercury, like Mercury Bank or whatnot, and that's sort of like the Band-Aid for it. So if you want to go out there and open up a U.S. bank account tomorrow, then, we could certainly open up and get the incorporation documents and open up the account with Mercury, which is sort of like an online account. But I do advise to, to ultimately do plan a trip to the United States to get a bank account with a more sort of brick and mortar bank. But yeah, like I said, I mean, we've been able to offer this service and help a lot of people. And then, year to year, it's pretty simple. I mean, you do have to file like a 5472 form with the IRS as a foreign owner of an LLC, but that's pretty straightforward form. And like I said, I mean, it's a great solution for online entrepreneurs and people that want to, operate or at least have a U.S. bank account and not pay tax in the U.S.
That's it, brilliant. Well, look, considering I'm paying about between $300 and $1,000 in conversion fees every month, $1,000 is music to my ears. Yeah. You don't have to be an accountant or a tax advisor to work that one out. And totally. Luckily for me, I actually am going over in March. Quick story, I won't digress too much, but I've just had a kidney transplant in February 2019, and my donor's my best mate, and he's a mad golfer. So I'm taking him to the US in March to play whatever golf course he wants. So
nice. That's great.
Yeah, so I'll definitely be – the first thing I'll do when I get off the plane in LA is set up a US bank account. So.
Yeah, totally. There you go.
Well, look, that was absolutely wonderful. I'll just ask you a couple of quick questions about your business again. Leads. You're 14 years in, you seem to, be building a great business, but what's the best form of leads for you at the moment?
I mean, it has to be word of mouth, just just obviously clearly based on the fact that, I mean, I tend to think that we do a really good job, and we're, serve people with honesty, integrity, and of course, help maximize their value. So, they of course, spread the word about us, and that's a really good one. Of course, we do a lot of online marketing with Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google AdWords, etc. And conferences are great. I go to a lot of conferences. I'm currently in Spain at South Summit, which is a conference for startups, and we help a lot of startups that are looking to seek funding in the United States, and they're structuring behind that. We do a lot of stuff with Live and Invest Overseas and International Living. Those are newsletters to help Americans that are looking to move abroad or invest abroad. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of alliances and relationships also have obviously helped us over the years.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, before we go into the live section, I'd like to tell you about our high-level group mentoring program called BLG Surge. Work with like-minded solopreneurs to add an additional revenue stream to fund your lifestyle and work less hours. Go to buildlivegive.com/surge to apply and join the waitlist today. So, Vincenzo, the next section's the live section. Tell us about some of the daily habits that help you be successful.
I think one of the biggest things for me is meditation. I look to meditate twice a day, both in the morning and in the evening. And so I think that's one thing that sort of ground me, especially in the busy seasons, if you will. Same thing with also like working out. I mean, even going on I travel a lot, so even going on the road and going into a park and doing sort of routine with that is really really good. I mean, I use these things called like animal cards, which are sort of like a potpourri card selection, and you pick a card and you do the exercises. So that's super good. And then also I monitor my sleep levels a lot. Again, to sort of make sure that I'm sleeping well. I do intermittent fasting, which is another thing to sort of help my energy levels, and I just think in general we overeat, honestly. So yeah, I mean, these are sort of my daily routines and things I do to stay focused and stay healthy.
Great. And you mentioned measuring sleep levels, which I think is great. What do you use to measure them?
Yeah, so I have a ring called Aura, Oura, and it's connected to an app. So it's a ring, and it's connected to an app, and it will essentially show your different sleep levels, right? So your deep sleep, your light sleep, and REM sleep, and so that'll that monitors that, and then it also sort of monitors your heart rate and your daily activity levels.
Yeah, look, I've heard about them. I need to get one. Do you need to have your device in the room that you're sleeping in?
No, you don't have to have the device. I mean, you wear the ring, and the ring essentially tracks it, and then every morning I'll sort of open up the app, and the ring will sort of essentially communicate with the app via Bluetooth, and
Great. So you can have your phone in the next room as an example and still wear the ring. Perfect.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Well, the next is the give section. So what's a cause or a community that you're passionate about, and why?
So I like to give to places that I visit, and I'm particularly passionate about indigenous communities, right? I mean, I feel that we as a society, or our societies, right, have really kind of screwed over the indigenous people. Whether it's sort of in the U.S. and the Native Americans, and sort of how the U.S. has sort of taken their land over time. As you guys know, I spend a lot of time in South America, and so looking at Colombia and Brazil, in particular, like last year, I spent a couple weeks with the tribe in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, and sort of learning from these people, right, and seeing how they they've, had to deal with, for example, the government and people and corporations coming in, taking their land, in the turn of the century for like the rubber trade, basically making these people sort of indentured servants / slaves. And then when synthetic rubber was invented, of course, then there was no need for these people in their land, and the government sort of gave them back their land, but didn't do anything from an education standpoint or helping these people. So in Brazil in particular, these people have nothing, right? They don't have electricity, they don't have running water. They essentially rely on the river from like a hunting and fishing standpoint, and then also rely on the government from like a government handout standpoint, and then obviously there's also like tourism and plant medicine and stuff that they do there. But so I've helped a lot with this Amazonian tribe in Brazil and trying to get their message out. Right now I'm helping with an Amazonian tribe in Colombia and raising money via an organization called Give Power that essentially gives solar power and hydroponics, aquaponics to these indigenous communities and sort of helping them with self-sustainability. So that's a big sort of passion I have as far as giving back to indigenous communities, but really anyone who's really in need.
That's brilliant. And look, just quickly, our Indigenous, which is Aboriginals, I actually support them through the Purple House. I'll put links in the show notes. But, they're in the middle of Australia. It's, so vast and desolate. And they've got who I support helps with dialysis, which is, essential for their living, for kidney failure. And, I was so lucky I had my kidney transplant in a great hospital in Melbourne, and I had dialysis, and I know how hard it was to do it, let alone these people. Wow. So, similar passion. So that's great. So the last section is the action section. I'll ask you 3 rapid fire questions and then get your rapid fire responses. So what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
I like to monitor my time. I keep a really tight schedule when it comes to sort of, when I'll have one day that I strictly do phone calls. I have one day where I set aside time strictly for working head down and not communicate with anybody. And so I think, monitoring time is super important. Number 2, I think, again, personal effectiveness, I think is related to getting substantial sleep and, sort of having time for like I said, meditation and exercise. So I think that's another big one. And then number 3, eating right. I have a very, sort of, plant-based diet. I don't really eat a lot of meat, especially during the day. I'll enjoy a steak dinner every now and again. I'm not sort of,
you're in Argentina, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but, I'll, especially during the day, I try and eat like really light, because, obviously if you have a really heavy, meat lunch, you're not going to be very effective. At least I don't think you're going to be very effective in the afternoon. So, I'm super about like monitoring that and eating super healthy, especially during the day.
Great. So the next one is your one piece of tech that you couldn't run your business without.
Man, I'll give you 2. One, our tax software I think is super important. Obviously because we couldn't do taxes, and then number 2, we have a CRM called Solve 360 that's been really, really helpful as far as sort of managing our clients and our process. We will actually maybe potentially grow out of that. So I'm not going to plug the actual CRM, although it's been really good up to this point. But I think anyone who's sort of starting a business, you have to have a CRM to manage your customers and be able to follow up with them, et cetera.
Great. And what's the best source of you gaining inspiration and knowledge to grow your business?
I think, I think sort of having, being a part of entrepreneur organizations, right? So, Dynamite Circle's one, which is an organization for sort of like online entrepreneurs and digital nomads. And, whether in the forum that they have or sort of the monthly meetup. So they have an annual meetup that's actually coming up in Bangkok in October. I think that's really, really good. I'm also a member of something called YEC, Young Entrepreneurs Council. Again, sort of, in the forum and in the meetups, that's really good. EO Entrepreneurs Organization's another one that's good, and that has a mastermind aspect. But yeah, I mean, I think, and as an entrepreneur, and obviously, having either a mastermind where you're bouncing ideas off of people in a closed environment, or whether it's sort of being a member of these groups and doing it in an online forum, or just sort of one-on-one conversations that you have with people, I think is super helpful. And between that and reading, I feel like reading's kind of a lost art too. So I read a lot of books. Like I said, Gina Wickham Traction. Yeah, I mean, a few other stuff, podcasts too. So I think that's another way to sort of really be helpful and get good feedback.
Well, the last question is the big one that I've left to last. So what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I mean, I think I just want to leave the world in a better place than I came to it with, right? And there's two ways to do that. I mean, there's sort of like, the high level, sort of big impact stuff, right? Like, with climate change and that sort of thing. And I'm a believer in trying to go that route, or, even in the sort of individual level, stuff. And that's sort of where I feel like I've, focused my efforts on, helping these tribes and, going to the Amazon and helping them, sort of face to face, and trying to, create impact and share that, with, other people. So I think that's sort of my solution at this point is, again, sort of person to person, tribe to tribe, trying to help people.
Brilliant. Well, look, it was absolutely inspirational having you on the show. There's a lot of people listening right now that are either digital nomads, like you said, or wanting to be. And I think you gave some brilliant options for them to pursue. I'll be setting up my US ULC first thing tomorrow, or getting you to help me, I should say, to do that. So that was great. So you can find out more if you want to set up your US account as well. OnlineTaxman.com, and you can get a free consultation with Vincenzo there. So Vincenzo, absolute pleasure having you on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was awesome.
That was an inspiring and really informative interview with Vincenzo. You can get the show notes at buildlivegive.com. If you believe someone would benefit from the show, please share. Vincenzo would love to get your feedback and appreciation. Just hit him up on LinkedIn. Also, his profile will be in the show notes. If you would like to apply for our group mentoring, go to buildlivegive.com/surge. All the links will be in the show notes. Please take action to build new revenue streams, to fund your lifestyle, and give back.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.